She cleaned the penthouse every Tuesday and Friday. For 8 months, Zainab Bello had moved through the same routine. Arrive at 7. Sanitize. Dust. Mop. Arrange. Leave by 9. She never lingered. She never touched what was not meant to be touched. She never looked too long at the view of Seoul stretched out beneath the floor-to-ceiling windows like a city made of fallen stars. She was invisible here. That was the job. The penthouse belonged to someone she had never met. The cleaning service told her only what she needed to know. Wealthy client. Private. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not ask questions. She never did. Tonight, Zainab finished wiping down the marble kitchen counter. She folded her cloth neatly, placed it in her bag, pulled on her coat. The apartment was silent, as it always was. She bowed slightly toward the empty living room, a habit she could not shake. Respect for the space. Respect for the work. She whispered, "Thank you for the work." And then she turned toward the door. But a voice stopped her. Low. Quiet. Male. Take the elevator on the left tonight. Zainab froze. Her heart slammed against her ribs. She turned slowly and saw him. He stood near the hallway that led to the private wing. Tall. Still. Dressed in a dark sweater and slacks. His face was calm. His eyes watched her without urgency. Kang Min-hyuk. She had seen his name on documents. She had cleaned around his presence without ever seeing him directly. She had assumed he was never home. She had assumed he did not care who moved through his space. But now he stood there, looking at her like he had always known she was there. The right elevator is under maintenance, he said. His voice was not cold. It was careful. The left one will take you to the lobby faster. She blinked. He did not wait for a response. He simply turned and disappeared back into the hallway. Zainab stood frozen for a long moment. Her hand still hovered near her bag strap. Her breath had not yet returned to normal. She had worked here for 8 months, and tonight was the first time he had ever spoken to her. She left through the elevator on the left, and all the way down. She could not stop her hands from trembling. If you are already hooked and want to see where this goes, make sure you are subscribed and tap that notification bell. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. The next time Zainab arrived at the penthouse, she told herself it meant nothing. Rich men spoke when it suited them. They forgot just as quickly. She was still the housekeeper. He was still the man whose floors she mopped and whose silence she respected. She entered the apartment with her keycard, set down her supplies, removed her shoes, and placed them neatly by the door. Everything looked the same, but something felt different. She could not explain it. The air felt watched. She shook off the thought and began her routine. Living room, dining area, kitchen, guest bathroom. She moved quickly but thoroughly. Her hands knew this place better than she wanted to admit. When she reached the hallway that led toward his bedroom and study, she paused. The door to his study was open. That had never happened before. She hesitated, then stepped closer. Inside, she could see the edge of a desk, bookshelves, a large monitor glowing faintly, and him. Kang Min-hyuk sat at his desk, his back partially turned. He wore a headset. He was speaking softly in Korean. Something about quarterly reports and shareholder meetings. He did not look up. She stepped back immediately. This was not her space. She turned and continued her work, ignoring the strange pull in her chest. She cleaned the guest rooms, organized the linen closet, wiped down every surface that was hers to wipe. When she returned to gather her things, she noticed something on the small table near the entrance. A bottle of water, unopened. It had not been there when she arrived. She stared at it, and then she saw the small note beneath it. Handwritten. One sentence. It is cold outside. Stay hydrated. Her chest tightened. She looked around the apartment. The door to the study was now closed. There was no sign of him. She picked up the water, held it for a moment, then placed it back on the table, and left. She was not here to be noticed. But he noticed anyway. Over the next few weeks, Zainab began to see patterns she had missed before. The thermostat was always adjusted before she arrived. Warmer on cold nights, cooler on the days when the sun blazed through the windows. A fresh towel was always placed near the kitchen sink. Never used, just waiting for her. The lights in the hallway were dimmed at exactly the time she entered. As if someone knew her eyes were sensitive after long subway rides. She never saw him do any of it, but she knew someone was paying attention, not in a way that frightened her, in a way that made her feel seen. She did not know what to do with that feeling, so she buried it. She told herself it was nothing, that wealthy men had staff who handled these things, that it was not him personally, that she was imagining a story where none existed. But one night, she could no longer pretend. It was a Friday. A storm had been building over Seoul all day. By evening, the sky had turned a bruised purple, and the wind rattled the windows of the penthouse like it wanted in. Zainab had almost finished her shift. She was wiping down the kitchen island when the lights flickered. Once, twice, and then darkness. The entire apartment went black. She stood still. Her hand gripped the edge of the counter. Her breath caught in her throat. She was not afraid of the dark, but she was afraid of being trapped. She reached for her phone. The screen lit up, casting a pale glow across the marble. She turned on the flashlight and looked around. The backup generator should have kicked in by now. It had not. She moved slowly toward the front door. Her shoes were still by the entrance. She just needed to grab them and leave. The stairwell would still be accessible. 23 floors down. She had walked worse. But when she reached the door, it would not open. The electronic lock had failed. She tried again. Nothing. She was locked inside. This is where the story shifts. And if you are feeling what Zainab is feeling right now, that quiet dread, that sense that something is about to change forever, drop a comment. Tell me what you think will happen next. And make sure you have liked this video. It helps more than you know. Now, let us continue. Zainab stood at the door for a long moment. Her flashlight trembled slightly in her hand. She was not the type to panic. She had survived worse than a blackout in a rich man's apartment. She had crossed oceans alone. She had slept in places far more frightening than this. But the silence here was different. It pressed against her skin. She turned slowly, and that was when she saw him. Kang Min-hyuk stood at the far end of the living room. He held a small emergency lantern. The soft light cast shadows across his face, making his expression unreadable. The building's main power grid failed, he said quietly. The backup system is manual. I have already contacted maintenance. It will take at least an hour. She swallowed. An hour. Alone with him. I can wait in the hallway, she said. Her voice came out steadier than she felt. The hallway doors are also locked, he replied. The entire floor is sealed during outages. Security protocol. She said nothing. He tilted his head slightly. You are uncomfortable. It was not a question. I am fine, she said. He watched her for a moment. Then he moved toward the large sectional sofa and sat down on one end. He placed the lantern on the coffee table between them. Sit if you want, he said. Or stand. I will stay here. He did not look at her again. He simply sat in the dim light and waited. Zainab did not sit. Not at first. She stood near the entrance, her back against the wall, her arms crossed over her chest. Her bag hung at her side. Her eyes moved around the room, adjusting to the low light. He did not try to fill the silence. He did not ask her questions. He simply existed in the same space, without demanding anything from her. Minutes passed. Her legs began to ache. Finally, slowly, she moved toward the opposite end of the sectional. She sat down, kept her bag in her lap, kept her eyes forward. The lantern flickered between them. You have worked here for 8 months, he said. She glanced at him. He was not looking at her. His gaze was fixed on the rain streaking down the window. Yes, she said. You always bow before you leave. Her chest tightened. He had seen that. "It is a habit," she said carefully. "A respectful one." She did not respond. He turned his head, slightly. Just enough to see her in his peripheral vision. "You also whisper something. Every time. Just before the door." Her breath caught. "I did not mean to intrude," he said quietly. "Sound carries in empty rooms." She looked down at her hands. "I thank the space," she admitted, "for letting me work in it." Silence. Then, "That is not something most people would say." She shrugged. "I am not most people." He looked at her fully now. For the first time, she held his gaze. And something in his expression shifted. Not warmth exactly, but recognition. The power came back 47 minutes later. The lights hummed to life. The locks clicked open. The hum of the refrigerator filled the silence. Zainab stood immediately. She grabbed her bag, slipped on her shoes, moved toward the door. But before she could reach it, something soft landed on her shoulders. She turned. He had draped his jacket over her. He stood a full step behind her. He had not touched her, had not even brushed her arm. He had simply placed it there. "The subway will be crowded," he said, "and cold." She stared at him. "I will return it," she said. "Keep it." He stepped back. "Good night, Miss Bello." She did not know how he knew her name. She did not ask. She simply walked out into the hallway, wearing his jacket, and feeling like the ground beneath her feet had shifted in a way she could not yet name. After that night, things changed. Not dramatically, not obviously, but Zainab felt it. The cleaning schedule shifted. She was now assigned to arrive later in the evening. When he was home, she did not know if he had requested it. She did not ask. But every time she entered the penthouse now, she could feel his presence somewhere in the apartment. A door slightly ajar. A light on in the study. The faint scent of his cologne lingering in the hallway. He never interrupted her. He never hovered. But he was always there. And she found herself noticing things in return. The way he lowered the volume on his television when she entered the living room. The way meetings were cut short the moment she arrived. His voice ending abruptly mid-sentence on conference calls. The way the security team outside the building began greeting her differently, almost carefully, as if they had been given instructions. She told herself she was imagining it. But one evening, she could no longer deny it. She was cleaning the guest bathroom when her phone buzzed. A message from her younger brother in Lagos. He needed money. Again, their mother's medical bills had increased. The exchange rate was brutal. He was sorry to ask. She typed back quickly, told him she would send what she could. Then she placed her phone on the counter and pressed her hands against the sink. She was so tired. Not physically, but somewhere deeper. She had been in Seoul for 3 years, working, saving, sending everything home. She had nothing here. No friends. No community. No one who asked how she was. She was a ghost in this city. And ghosts did not get to rest. She wiped her eyes quickly and returned to work. But when she finished the bathroom and moved to gather her things, she realized her phone was not where she had left it. She searched the counter, the floor, her bag. Gone. Panic rose in her chest. That phone was everything. Her family, her banking app, her schedule, her proof that she existed somewhere outside these silent rooms. She searched the apartment for 20 minutes. Nothing. She left that night feeling like she had lost a limb. The next shift, she returned with a heavy heart. She would have to buy a new phone. Cheaper. Used. It would take a week's wages. Maybe more. She moved through the apartment slowly, distracted, her mind elsewhere. And then she opened the cleaning supply drawer and stopped breathing. A phone sat inside. New. Still in its box. The same model she had lost. The same color. There was no note this time. No explanation. Just the phone. Waiting for her. She picked it up with trembling hands. Opened the box. Inside, the phone was already activated. Her old number had been transferred. Her contacts restored. Her photos backed up. Someone had done all of this. Someone who had access to her lost phone. Someone who had the resources to replace it within 24 hours. She looked toward the hallway. The study door was closed. But she knew exactly who it was. That night, Zainab did not leave immediately. She stood in the living room, holding the phone, staring at the closed study door. She should thank him. She should say something. But what could she say? What did any of this mean? He was her employer, one of the wealthiest men in the country. He could buy 100 phones without thinking. This was nothing to him. But to her, this was everything. She placed the phone in her bag, and she bowed toward the empty room. But this time, she did not whisper thank you. She whispered, "Why?" The question hung in the air. No answer came. She left. But the question followed her home. It followed her onto the subway. It followed her into her tiny one-room apartment in the outskirts of the city. Why would a man like him care about a woman like her? The answer came 3 weeks later. Not from him. From a letter. Zainab returned to her apartment after a long shift to find an official envelope slipped under her door. Government seal. Immigration office. Her heart stopped. She opened it with shaking hands. The letter was short, clinical, final. Her visa renewal application had been denied. She had 30 days to leave the Republic of Korea. The room tilted. She read the letter again. Denied. 30 days. She had followed every rule, submitted every document, paid every fee. She had done everything right. And still, it was not enough. She sat down on the edge of her bed. The phone he had given her buzzed in her pocket. A message from her brother. A photo of their mother, smiling weakly from a hospital bed. Zainab turned off the screen. She could not tell them. She could not tell anyone. If she went back to Lagos now, there would be no more money, no more treatment, no more hope. She pressed her palms against her eyes. And for the first time in years, she let herself cry. What Zainab did not know, what she could not have known, was that across the city, in a penthouse that overlooked the glittering skyline, a man sat in his study, staring at a document on his screen. Her visa application, the denial, the 30-day deadline. Kang Min-hyuk had known before she did. He had contacts in every department. He had access to systems most people did not know existed. He had been watching her file for weeks, hoping the renewal would go through. It had not. And now, he faced a choice. He could do nothing. Let her leave. Let her disappear back into a life he would never be part of. Or he could intervene. He could use his influence. Pull strings. Make calls. Fix what the system had broken. But if he did, she would know. She would know that he had been watching, that he had access to her private records, that his interest in her went far beyond what an employer should feel. He leaned back in his chair, closed his eyes, and made his decision. Zainab had 30 days, but she did not know that someone had already begun counting. This is where I must leave you, for now. But if you want to know what Min-hyuk does next, if you want to see whether Zainab discovers the truth, if you want to feel your heart break in the best possible way, you need to subscribe. Right now, click the button, turn on notifications, and I promise you, what comes next will stay with you for a long time. Drop a comment and tell me, do you think he should tell her the truth or protect her in secret? I will see you in the next part.